We're used to thinking of digital prisons as a Silicon Valley invention. We look at our smartphones and think that YouTube or TikTok algorithms are the first mechanisms in history capable of enslaving the human mind. But we're wrong. Decades before the first line of software code was written, the world had already created the perfect model of digital slavery. And that model was Elvis Presley. Today, you see bloggers willing to eat hot wings or spend millions of dollars for 10 seconds of your attention. But look at Elvis. He was the first content that humanity learned to consume on an industrial scale. In this video, we'll prove that Graceland wasn't a palace, but a server room in which the world's first influencer was locked away. We'll examine how Colonel Tom Parker became a living prototype of the recommendation algorithm, and why the fate of the king of rock and roll is a direct warning to anyone dreaming of a YouTube button today.
Chapter 1. The Manager as a Soulless Code.
X films a year. It wasn't art, it was mass production. To understand Elvis's tragedy, you have to understand the man who created him. Tom Parker. He called himself the Colonel, even though he never served. He was an illegal immigrant, stateless, and, most importantly, tone-deaf. Parker didn't listen to Elvis sing. He listened to the jingle of coins in teenagers' pockets. For Parker, Elvis wasn't an artist. He was a product, the property. Today, YouTube's algorithm analyzes your CTR and retention. In 1956, Parker was doing the same thing manually. He forced Elvis to star in 3 spam ads. Parker understood that if Elvis's face disappeared from screens for even a month, his reach would plummet. Do you know what share Parker took? 50%. That's more than the Apple Store or YouTube. Elvis worked himself to the bone to feed a machine that didn't love him. It was the first ever content farm, where instead of neural networks, real talent was used, burned to the ground for profit.
Chapter 2. Technology of Deification and Isolation.
Why couldn't Elvis leave? Because he fell into the trap of social proof. In the 1950s, Parker used a tactic we now call hype machine. He hired professional screamers for his concerts, creating the illusion of mass frenzy. He sold I Hate Elvis buttons, profiting even from the haters. It was the world's first hate watching. But behind this triumph lurked an emptiness. The more popular Elvis became, the less human he became. He became a hostage to his brand. At Graceland, behind the famous gates, he created his own offline internet. He surrounded himself with the Memphis Mafia, people on his payroll who never said no to him. This is exactly what's happening to today's top bloggers. They build their Gracelands, surround themselves with assistants and operators, losing touch with reality. When you become an algorithm, you stop being a friend, a son, or a husband. You become a playback function. And as soon as that function fails, the system spits you out.
Chapter 3. Las Vegas Digital Prison.
In 1969, Elvis returned to the stage in Las Vegas. For fans, it was a triumph. For Colonel Parker, it was profit optimization. Imagine 636 concerts in a row. No days off. No room for creative expression. Elvis went on stage twice a day. It wasn't art, it was an endless stream. Modern Twitch streamers spend 12 hours a day, afraid to even go to the bathroom, lest their stats drop. Elvis was the first to learn the price of this fear. His life became a cycle. Hotel, stage, pills, hotel. He became a prisoner of his king image. If he tried to sing anything serious, the Colonel would slap his hands, demanding old hits. This is exactly what the YouTube algorithm does. Once you've made a successful prank, the system will stifle you, preventing you from making anything else. You become a slave to your most successful self.
Chapter 4. The pharmaceutical patch.
How do you maintain a schedule that's physically impossible for a human being? Elvis found the answer in chemistry. Highs, to wake up and go on stage. Lows, to fall asleep after the adrenaline rush. This wasn't drug addiction in the traditional sense, it was an attempt to fix a broken biological mechanism so it could continue to bring in money. Look at the modern content industry. Energy drinks, antidepressants, and burnout have become the norm. Creators live on the dopamine needle of likes, and when they run out of dopamine, they look for a substitute at the pharmacy. Elvis destroyed his body to maintain the simulation of a perpetual holiday. His obesity in his final years wasn't just laziness, it was the cry of a body that could no longer be the perfect product. But for Parker, even a dying Elvis was an asset. As long as he could stand, he had to sell tickets.
Chapter 5. Death Live.
On August 16, 1977, Elvis Presley was found dead. But the worst thing happened next. Colonel Parker learned of the death of his only client and didn't shed a tear. His first call was to the vinyl pressing plant. He ordered records pressed in millions. A dead Elvis became even more profitable than a living one. He doesn't need to be paid, he doesn't argue, he doesn't tire. This is the peak of the algorithm. When the artist becomes a pure brand. Today, we see AI covers in the voices of deceased artists, deepfakes, and endless posthumous albums. We've learned to milk the dead. Elvis opened this door, and today all major corporations are entering through it.
Chapter 6. Elvis and Every One of Us.
You might say, I'm not Elvis, I don't have Graceland or Colonel Parker. But look at your smartphone. The algorithm in your pocket knows more about your weaknesses than Parker knew about Elvis. It feeds you content that makes you click, get angry, or envy. We've all become participants in one giant show in Las Vegas, where the stage is a vertical tape. We consume other people's lives like hamburgers, without considering the price they pay for that shot. A modern Beast or any other top blogger is the same Elvis. They build gigantic sets to escape silence. Because silence on YouTube means oblivion. And oblivion for them is death.
Final. Your choice.
The truth is, Elvis Presley could have lived a long life. If only he'd found the strength to say no to his manager and his fans. But he loved the crowd's love more than his own life. It's a trap that millions fall into. At Time X, we don't just tell the history of music. We analyze the mechanisms of control. Elvis was the first victim of the system that rules the world today. He showed us that gold can be the strongest bar in the world. The question isn't who will win. Ali or Beast, Elvis or TikTok. The question is who among us will find the courage to turn off the screen and walk out of this casino. Thank you for watching to the end. If you're still here, it means your retention rate is higher than 90% of humanity. Use this time wisely. Subscribe so you don't miss the next reality analysis. That was Time X. See you in the next chapter of the story.